Are you ever going to write, may I call you Orson again?
Oh, my goodness. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if you didn't?
All right. Are you ever going to do a biography of yourself?
Well, I don't think a biography, because nowadays there's if you buy somebody's life story, they expect an awful lot of the sort of material that I don't tell anybody, you know, much less whoever would have the price of a book. I think one's privacy is invaded enough without doing it to oneself. But I would like sometime to write a book of, with memoir's an awful pompous word, but on subjects that interest me and about people I've known and liked rather than, and disasters and pleasures that I've had and all that, but not a 1, 2, 3 ABC, you know, one sunny morning in Kenosha, a chubby little one, you know.
I do know.
You know, that kind of thing.
You know, your childhood, though, does interest me. I really envy it. The idea, I never got to Europe until my present age, and a lot of people don't ever get there. And the thought of a child being taken there over and over as a kid, when was the earliest you went?
Well, I've spent my whole life kind of gypsying around. My father lived in Peking for quite a long time, and I spent 5 or 6 years there, or the greater part of those years. He stayed in Peking just because the living was easy there. You know, he liked to live au prince, in a very grand way, and he was born with a lot of bread and cast it on the waters, and it failed to return. And the only way he could really live it up was in Peking, where you could have 400 servants and give dinner parties with gold plate and have columns of ice with trees of orchids frozen into them for a mere pittance, relatively speaking. And that's what brought us to Peking. And I was sent to Europe at a very early age on trips, first with other little boys and then by myself, totally without any guidance. The idea was you've got to learn to be on your own. That had happened to my father when he was about 10.
How little,
and he did it to me. At 10 was the first time I actually traveled alone in Europe with just so much money tied into my jeans, and there I went, you know.
Did that seem romantic and exciting?
Terribly romantic.
Yeah.
Terribly romantic. What seemed even more romantic to me were all the expensive hotels and restaurants I couldn't afford to get into on the amount of money they thought I should learn to get along on.
Can you remember?
That didn't seem a bit picturesque. Sure you know.
Can you remember meeting people then that you realized later the significance of, if you know what I mean? I mean,
no, because I think I realized then.
You did?
Yeah, people told me, and I was very impressed by great people and interesting people as a kid. I was very interested in older people, unlike most young people are indeed.
That is odd for a kid. You didn't have little friends that you played with.
I had little friends who if they were big enough, chased me around the block, and little friends who, if they were meek enough, I bullied. But it was always pretty much of a battle in the contemporary scene. And I was always scared of teenagers.
Why?
I hated them before I was in my teens. I thought they were insane.
Yeah.
And after I spent all my teens pretending not to be in my teens, but in my 20s, and avoiding that age. And it's only recently, since the teenagers have become the rulers and sovereigns of the world, that I've changed my opinion. But until this very latest generation, I have been very strongly of the conviction that there are periods during one's adolescence when one is feverishly insane.
Well said.
That's been changed, however, now.
You have certain sympathy now with that age.
More than sympathy. I'm grateful to them even for their fever.
Orson Welles. I guess I just can't get over that childhood of yours. The little scraps I've read about it, sitting at tables at your age with people who were, well, in other countries for one thing, but sometimes world leaders, I suppose. Or were there any world leaders?
Oh, yes. The world leader that really came to nothing, as far as my memory is concerned, was Hitler. I was being escorted. I went twice through the Tyrol and Austria and German hiking country, once with one teacher and once with another. And one of the two teachers was, it turned out, a sort of a budding Nazi. And there was a big Nazi rally near Innsbruck. In the days when the Nazis were just a very comical kind of minority party of nuts that nobody took seriously at all, except my hiking companion, this gentleman, and his knapsack, and he wangled a place at the table with the great men of this tiny little party of cranks. And I remember very well afterwards, Stryker was the leader of the big anti-Semitic campaigns, and 2 or 3 other well-known people to this day. The man sitting next to me was Hitler, and he made so little impression on me that I can't remember a second of it.
Gee.
He had no personality whatsoever.
Wonder if
He was invisible.
Wonder if under hypnosis it would come out. Do you?
No, I think there was nothing there that anybody'd remember. Till you had 5,000 people yelling, "Sieg Heil," Heil Hitler. That's the whole point of the story, that there wasn't anything to remember.
What about those films that were made about him by Leni Riefenstahl?
Pretty good films.
Are they? You often hear that
They are awfully well made, yes.
Is she alive?
Yes.
Have you met her?
No, I haven't met her. But she's living, I think, in England or some place like that, and hustling around trying to get, to flog a documentary here and there.
Yeah.
On almost any subject.
Gee, interesting thing.
I never met Stalin. I never met Stalin, but Roosevelt I knew very well, and Churchill, and lots of, during childhood and then youth, of course. I was very lucky in that respect.
What age were you when you were orphaned?
Well, my mother died when I was 7, and my father died when I was 15, beginning of my 15th birthday. Then I ran away, tried to stay out of school, out of Harvard. I had a scholarship, and desperate not to be educated, I went into the theater. I made it. I wasn't educated.
What if you were now? I mean, what if you wanted to go to school? Do you have any idea what you want to study now?
Gee, that's a good question. Everything, I guess. But if I wanted to study seriously, and get good at a subject, I think it would be anthropology. Don't you think that's a fascinating subject?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I would too. I don't know. Or maybe philosophy. I never thought about it very much.
I'm suspicious of philosophy. I have a real Philistine doubt about its worth, But anthropology seems to me to be just at its beginnings, and philosophy kind of at its end.